Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's very interesting listening to James about can't, and actually my kind of speech, I think, is probably about can. And I was very fortunate at the age of 4, which was nearly 50 years ago now, to be discovered as being very badly dyslexic. And growing up in a city council house with my amazing family and my great dad, who worked at Smithfield Meat Market all his life and had lots of amazing friends. And one day, one of his friends, Dennis Gray, who was head of IPC magazines, came and just married a woman, ironically, from New Zealand. And she came to our house and saw me, and she said, "Look, this kid's not the village idiot, he's dyslexic." And my dad said, "What's dyslexic?" And she explained and told him, and he said, "Wow, that's amazing." And off they went. And a few days later, Valerie came back with Dennis and said, "Look, you know, Dennis is doing very well. I'm not working. I stay at home. I would like to teach Steve. I would like to teach him, home educating." So I had a result. From the age of 4 to 13, I never went to school. And I used to go around their amazing house, and their house was very different to our house because, like I said, we had a council house. My dad, very bohemian man, great artist. My mother painted. And we had all sorts of amazing animals. And one of them, funny enough, which used to shock people, we had a pet chimpanzee called Primo who used to live with us. And it was in the days long before the Dangerous Animal Act. And Primo was a great beast. He's a huge monkey, fully grown. And the milkman was absolute shit of Primo because he used to terrify the life out of the milkman. And when we used to sit and have Sunday lunch, my grandmother used to live with us, and she loved showing off to friends that she would invite to come and eat with us. And one of the tricks was that Primo literally used to sit at the dinner table and eat with us. And after we'd all eaten, my grandmother would get a packet of sweets and pass the sweets around. Primo, boss-eyed with fingers like broom handles, would look in this packet, pull out a sweet, and everybody going, "That's amazing, that's amazing." And Primo, boss-eyed, get the other sweet with his huge broom handle fingers, pull the sweet, get the sweet, throw the sweet away and eat the wrapper on cue. To which everybody loved it. And of course, you know, like I said, very, very great fun at all time living with this chimpanzee. However, I then went back and started being taught with this wonderful woman, Valerie, who taught me all sorts of great things. And Dennis Gray, at that time, was in charge of 3 publications that actually James would have liked. One was Practical Boat Builder, Practical Home Builder, and Practical Woodworker. And he said to myself that, you know, every day he would work on various projects and various stories. And he said, come and, you know, help him. And in those days, there was no Apple Macs. If he was going to create and design, make a mirror dinghy for one of his publications, he would actually, at a workshop at home, he would make it in the workshop, photograph it in stages, and then assemble the story. And I started to help him, and it was wonderful. I had a fantastic time. And then by the time I was 12, I've been helping him quite a lot. He gave me my own double-page spread in one of his publications, which was great because every month I got paid. I had to 1 month, it would be how to create animal cages, how to make the stick insect light box, how to make the tortoise hibernation box, and so on. And then the following month it would be Easter. So it would be great, how to decorate Easter eggs, how to make wrapping papers, and so on, and so on, and so on. And it was absolutely wonderful. And of course, it was a very shocking moment in my life when at 13, after not going to school, there was a knock at the door, and now, by law, apparently I have to go to school. But the problem is I'm now like Wednesday at the Addams Family, right? I'm a wild person. I dressed, obviously, how I wanted to dress. And I had a great realization, and why I dressed like I did, and still do, was that at 9 years old, with usually poor families, you always have a rich aunt. And I had this amazing rich aunt. Aunt Hazel, who was the most amazing woman. And my mum's a front wheel, you know, a 4x2, a Jew like she was. And I went round there to my lovely Aunt Hazel's house, and she had cabinets full of amazing objects. She had glass, china. And I said to her that day, I said to my aunt, "When do you use all this stuff?" And she said, "On special occasions." You know what? A week later, she died. She died and never, ever used any of it. And it was the most saddest thing to me. And it was a realisation that day at 9. I thought, right, we've got no money, we've got nothing. But we have a great life because my dad was always entertaining and my mum made our clothes. But I had a Sunday best. And I thought, right, from now on, I'm going to wear my Sunday best every day. Because every day you can dress for a party. And the party will come to you. So if you've got those fantastic gold shoes, the most beautiful dress, the most beautiful suit, wear it. If it gets torn or breaks or wears out, doesn't matter. You would have absolutely enjoyed it and it would be the best thing in life. And it is. And I dress for a party every day and I truly have a party every day. So any object, please do that. And then, of course, I went to school and Dennis had managed to blag me into a school in Dulwich, which I'm too badly dyslexic to do any other work apart from live in the art department. So I lived in the art department for 2 years. And I had a great head of art. He was an amazing man and he looked after me and he said, look, there's a competition coming up. He said, I've heard about it. It's the European Artist of the Year competition and I'm going to enter you. Anyway, he entered me and luckily for me, I won it. And at that exhibition and at the final presentation, a man came up to me. He said, look, come and work with us. He runs one of the biggest design agencies in London. And I was 15, and he said, come and work with us. So it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. It was one of those greatest moments of now all of a sudden I'm earning money. I can afford to go and buy more clothes and fish. And I started working at this great company called ABC Graphics. While I was working there, with the second week I was there, I always wanted a horse. So I went and bought myself a horse. And you could buy a horse, believe it or not, in London in those days, in a place called Southall. Southall, on a Wednesday, all the gypsies would go and take their horses and you could buy one. I bought a horse for 60 quid and rode it home without a saddle and kept it in a garden. And I used to go to work on my horse. And I used to gallop up the Old Kent Road, literally, bareback, go into the car park, all the Porsches and the Jags, and there would be my horse tied up for the day. Absolutely amazing. Big pile of shit at the end of the day. They never minded. They really didn't. They absolutely loved it. And I was working on a great job designing. We were designing for great firms. One of them was British Gas. And I was working on the brand for British Gas. And I was there about, I was about 16, been there a year. And he said, this studio manager said, look, this is not quite right what you've done. And anyway, being quite stroppy, I said, look, this is how it should be. No, it's not. Anyway, we had a row. While I'm having a row, I said, look, we should do this way. And he said, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to scrub it. Anyway, I said, well, look, poach the job up your arse. And he said, look, you can't. I said, look, yeah, I am. I said, this is not fair. I said, because what I've done here is right, and you're saying it's wrong, and you're not. Anyway, I said, no, I'm not interested. Now, while I'm arguing, a friend of mine is reading one of my horse magazines, because Horse and Hounds magazine, Horse and Hound, fishing magazines and horse magazines are brilliant for dyslexics, right? It's just full of pictures. Lovely women holding horses like that, people on jumping over fences, fishing magazines exactly the same, you know, they're always there. So he was flicking through my Horse and Hound and saw in the back of the Horse and Hound that there was a apprentice jockey wanted. So while I'm having a ruck with him, I finish. He said, look at this, Steve. He reads, he's saying, there's a job, apprentice jockey, Newmarket. I went, write me a letter, let's apply for it. He wrote me a letter. I went up to Newmarket, met this great man called Doug Smith next to Henry Cecil's yard, and he gave me the job. So now I'm an apprentice jockey. I've got a 60 quid horse, and I think I know everything about horses. So the governor there, he shows me around the yard, and the first horse he takes me to is this mad horse on its back with its night rug in its mouth, ripping it like mad. And it's called Vain Pursuit, and I thought, fuck that. It was like, this was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. It was a monster, and I thought, whoa. Anyway, carried on around. Anyway, went home, sort of next morning, got up for work. They said, you get up at 5 and there'll be a rota with all the horses you've got to look after. Yeah, there it was, Vain Pursuit. I thought, oh, fuck, this horse tried to kill me. It was biting me. Anyway, I had a great time being an apprentice jockey. I learnt to ride all sorts of great horses. Used to get pissed off with a lot because, you know, they're just a very, very tough thing to ride. you know, all the colts would kick off first, and then the fillies would go after. But if you couldn't hold a filly, you know, it would then take off, and it would upset the whole string. So you'd be bombing past all these jockeys and going, "Sorry, Tom, sorry, Charlie," and boom, gone. Anyway, I wasn't tough enough. I missed the art world, and I decided to go back. And when I went back, my old boss, he said, "Oh, come back, you must come back," which I did. By then, they were working on all sorts of other projects, and one of them they put me on was the Muppet Show. They were doing a lot of stuff on the Muppets. And then Jim Henson said to me, "You should come and sort of come with us." So I'm just about 16 and a half, and he said, "Come with us." And I said, "Well, I have to ask him, permission." He said, "We've already asked for you." And Russell Andrews, who owned this company, very charming man, he said, "Yeah, please go. You must go and work on the Muppets." So there I am now working on the Muppet Show, which was absolutely fantastic. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And while I'm working there, he said, I was there a few months, short contract. Jim Henson said, and we was working at ATV Studios at EMI Studios, ATV Studios opposite EMI Studios in Boreham Wood. And he said, "There's a man over the road, he wants to see you, he wants to give you a job." And I thought they were trying to get rid of me early. And I said, "Hang on a second, I'll carry on here, I love it." It's like, you can imagine working there, it was just amazing. And he said, "No, you've got to go over and meet this bloke." And I said to Jim Henson, I said, "Well, I want to stay here." He said, "Listen, Steve, it's a good opportunity. I want you to go, and please go. And if you don't like it, come back." So I said, "All right, we'll go and see." So he said, "You've got to go and see George Lucas." And I went, "Who the fuck is George Lucas?" And he said, "He's a producer, and he's making a film." I went, "All right, okay." So I went over to EMI Studios, went upstairs, was taken up by this very nice woman. On the door, there was a little plaque. Obviously, I couldn't read it, but I opened it. I went in the door, and very nice man, and he said, "Look, come and work with us." And I said, "What do you want me to do?" He said, "Well, anything you want." He said, "Work in the art department." I said, "Anything I want?" He said, "Yeah." So I said, "Well, can I see the art department?" He went, "Yeah." Now, being passionate about what I do is design and art, and that's what I've always done. I found my passion very, very young. As long as, like I said, I got a bag of glitter, magic markers and plastic scissors, I'm happy. And when I went to this art department, it was like, wow, what an art department. I did Star Wars. I worked on Empire Strikes Back. And then I worked on Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was great because I managed to get my dad to supply a lot of animals for that movie. So he supplied all the snakes, and we had a lot of interesting snakes. We had a lot of boas and pythons and grass snakes, and my pet monkey, Snuff, because that was another one of our little capuchin monkey that would hi Hitler and do all that. It was that monkey. And while I was working in the art department, apparently downstairs they were filming a shot on the Well of Souls. That bit when there's Harrison Ford and Marion and the torches are going out and it's getting darker and the snakes are closing in. And the stunt woman would not go in the snakes wouldn't go in the pit with the snakes. She said, "Look, you can set me on fire, I'll drive off a cliff in a car, but I'm not going in that pit, not at all." So Spielberg come and got me, and he said, "Steve, come on, get your legs shaved." So I had my legs shaved. And I wore the party dress. And it's me and Harrison Ford in that pit, keeping away all those snakes. It was quite frightening, actually, because they said that I had better legs than actually Karen Allen, who was the main star in that film. So it was very, very sort of enjoyable. And then I decided that I did the movies, and I wanted to set my own studio up. So I went and started thinking about a name for my company. And, of course, when you work on a film unit, you become very good friends with everybody. And George Lucas and Spielberg on Raiders, they all said, "Oh, you mustn't, but we give you our blessing." And then they invited me to a very special dinner party when I finished. And I went to this dinner party, and there was Jean-Paul Getty there. And he came up and he said, "I hear you're starting up your own business." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm going to tell you 3 things you need to know about starting your own business up." I went, "Wow, really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Number 1, make sure that you're there before your team turn up. So it shows that you're powerful, you're passionate, and there you are before anybody else gets in. That's the way to run a good business." I said, "Okay." He said, "And the second thing, when they all leave at the end of the day, make sure you're still there. So that when they go, they still see you, that, wow, the captain's still there running the ship." I said, "And the third thing?" He said, "You've got to strike oil, man. You've got to strike oil." Now, metaphorically, you have to. You have to find that oil. And for me, I was very fortunate. I found my oil in the sense of being creative and then working on all sorts of amazing brands. We had a great brand come to us, first of all, Wix Building Supplies, and they said, look, Steve, we want a twist. We've heard you can give us a twist, create that twist. So we had to create something that hadn't been done before, because for me, I bought my first house, and this house was a dive. It was like a real squat, and I couldn't really afford to do it up at that time. And then I thought, wouldn't it be great if you could buy you could get a good idea leaflet, and this good idea leaflet would teach you how to install the central heating, or good idea leaflet number 54, how to install your kitchen. And I came up with this idea. I thought, good idea leaflets. Sorry, James, can I have some water? Thank you. So I thought, what a great idea. So I went to Wix. I went back to Wix and said, look, I've got this idea about good idea leaflets. We can go from 1 to 100, how to install everything in a home. Thanks, mate. Thank you. That will help people sell more product, because actually, yeah, I can now do it. And they said, yeah, but where are we going to do this to film? I know just the place. I said, I know just the place. Anyway, so it was a result. My house is still on some of these illustrations that you see on these good idea leaflets today. And then we had all sorts of other amazing brands that would come to us. And then Christian Dior came to us. And then Cartier came to us. And then Marks and Spencer's. And then all the old English brands, all those great brands like Purdy Guns, Fortnum Masons. You know, Fortnum Masons is a very interesting, old brand, 1707. And we got a phone call one day in the studio, and I thought it was a friend, somebody at it. It was a right old dodgery bird on the phone. Hello, can I speak to Steve Edge? I went, yes, and he said, I'm Mr. Hamilton for you. So this very nice man came on and said, oh, are you Steve? I said, yes. He said, I'm Jerry Hamilton. He said, I'm Mr. Hamilton. He said, I'm the managing director of Fortnum Masons, and would you come and help us? I said, yeah, of course. I said, first of all, Mr. Hamilton, what's your first name? He said, Jerry. I said, can I call you Jerry? He said, I'd prefer it if you didn't. I said, in that case, Jerry, I'll call you Mr. Hamilton. And I went back to Fortnum Masons, and of course, there they were, amazing people. Mr. H, Jerry Hamilton, and the chairman, Jana Weston, and they said, look, Steve, we have a problem. We can't get people off the high street in anymore to us. We want to get people. I said, well, of course you do. I said, now, all the blue bloods have lost their dough, and the Japanese tourists don't come anymore. Now you want people off the high street. I said, which is a problem, because you've alienated them. You make them feel silly. They're frightened to walk through the Bobby Moore here because they're going to feel silly. So they said, all right. He said, well, what do we do? How do we do that? And of course, we're always put on the spot as designers and creatives for that moment. And I said, well, you know what? We have to bring humour into this, because humour does not degrade anything. Show me a company that has fun, and I guarantee good work comes out of it. And so I said, well, look, humour. I said, maybe we should invent, bring a character in here somewhere. And they said, well, what? I said, well, I know. What about Oscar Wilde? Oscar Wilde was a great Sybarite. He would obviously come and shop in Fortnum Masons, and he would be a great person because all his amazing sayings was just perfect. Obviously I can, all those classic ones, that's sort of the most obvious. I can resist everything except temptation. But, one can forgive anybody after a good meal, even one's own relatives, he said, which was perfect for Fortnum Masons, And I have noticed in every married household, the champagne is usually second rate, he said. Great snob, perfect snob. The classic for me, though, was that he said, gold-tipped cigarettes are so awfully expensive. I can only afford them when I'm in debt. And I just thought that is so, so true. Another great one that Oscar Wilde, someone wrote a letter to Wilde to say, from America, this town was called Griggsville, wrote to him and said, Mr. Wilde, would you come and do a talk for us on aesthetics? And he wrote back and said, first of all, change the name of your town, he said, which is so true. And then the thing about what we do is about to create brands, and it's that passion of the brand. And as always, it's about, how do you get there? How do you create? Well, it's about a story. People remember the good stories. They don't remember the bad stories. And it's so important when we get clients For instance, just to talk about a good story, is that I was invited last year on top of Nelson's column. Unbelievable. I love Nelson, and it was a result to be on top of Nelson's column. More people have been on Everest than they have been on Nelson's column because you can't get up there. The last time they did it was 40 years ago, restored it, and now they've restored it now, and it's going to be 150 years before they really have to do it again. So 16 people got invited up on the top of Nelson's column, and fantastic party we had up there. And a very nice man came up and he said, Steve, can you help me? I went, yeah, if I can. What is it? He said, well, it's about our brand. He said, believe it or not many people know about us, but we actually restored Nelson's column. We've done this job. We did Hampton Court, Windsor Castle, Greenwich Naval College. He did everything. And I said, okay. So a few weeks later, I went and saw him. And he said, look, we're called David Ball Restoration. And he showed me his letterhead. And of course, it was dodgy, the material horrible, because we all know it's about first impressions. And I said, whoa, okay. I said, yeah, it's a bit tight. He said, well, the problem as well, he said, people ring up and go, can I speak to David Ball? And my secretary says, no, sorry, he's dead. I went, whoa, we have to get rid of that one, all right? Because that's not good for your brand, all right? Let's definitely get rid of that. But remember, when you rebrand, you mustn't frighten away your old clients. Keep your customers, don't frighten them, because obviously as soon as you do a name change, people think, oh, hang on a second, take over, buy out, they're going bust. So you have to be careful. So of course, we just called it DBR. It's very simple, David Ball Restoration. The people that knew it as David Ball Restoration, DBR, it's okay. But then I managed to find the god of restoration, Janus. He looks to the future, he looks to the past. So we chopped his chin and his nose off at one side, which is the unrestored, left the other side as the restored, and then we came up with DBR, making sure the past has a future. And it's very important that, because people now, they drive around London, they see there's a grazing banner of DBR, and DBR, making sure the past has a future. It tells a great story. And brands are about stories. And that's what I like creating. I like creating stories around corporate identities, because then you will remember it far, far better. And all I would like to say is thank you all very, very much indeed. And if you ever find yourself in Shoreditch, do come in for a cup of tea, because I'll be dressed for a party. Thank you.